What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another weather forecast here by Adrian's Weather Forecast. And this is going to be another big tropical update here. Tropical Storm Claudette formed earlier this morning here, right before landfall. So we do now have finally Claudette, and it's going to bring in some impacts for a portion of the southeast here. And hopefully, I can get enough impacts to vlog it for you guys, and I can post that as well. We're looking at for some really gusty winds, really heavy rain, and as well as still some pretty big and significant flash flooding, as well. Even be seeing some more storms left to come as those winds wrap around. We have a lot to talk about. We have new model runs. We have a lot to talk about with this storm here. We have new cones, everything. So if you guys want to get the updates on Claudette, be sure to subscribe to the channel and as well smash that subscribe button. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So here's looking at the 5-day tropical weather outlook here by the National Hurricane Center. And there we have Tropical Storm Claudette. So we now have letter C crossed off. I mean, this whole storm looked like it was going to form, and then it looked like it wasn't going to form anymore. And somehow this thing was able to form just before landfall around 4 or 3 in the morning here. And boy, did it get it finally got its name, and it's going to continue to possibly even have its name all the way again into the eastern coast of the United States and even the Northwest Atlantic. So this thing may be able to have its name a little bit longer as it weekends obviously over the southeast. And then it gets obviously into this more warmer conditions and better conditions. But this thing's at 40 miles an hour and 35 knots. Minimum central pressure 1,007 millibars. So pressure is pretty darn low or pretty darn high, and probably because this thing's just so lopsided and just so unorganized. This thing has been unorganized its whole life. So that's why pressure is so high, because this thing does not have this thing has a pretty open low, and it always has had an open low. I know landfall is going to make it look a lot worse, but actually it looks a lot better over land than what it looked like yesterday over water. And it's moving northeast at 14 miles an hour. So obviously it's going to start going into portions of Georgia and then go out of the Carolinas and go up the East Coast. But let's now go ahead and get a look here at the models and National Hurricane Center track. So here's looking now at the latest National Hurricane Center cone here as this thing has made landfall. So there it is, as still a tropical storm bringing in those winds on the eastern quadrants. Like I did say, this thing has been disorganized its whole life, and it only has winds on the eastern quadrants and not on the western quadrants. So areas in the northeast quadrants, such as Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, are getting hit the hardest right now, while Louisiana's kind of getting spared at the moment because really they're not getting much effects like they were expected to. So we still do have tropical storm warnings for portions of eastern Louisiana, Mississippi coast, Alabama coast, and portions of the Florida Panhandle, including Destin, Fort Walton, and as well portions of Panama City. So we're still seeing some effects there for portions of the northeast Gulf Coast. That's going to become a tropical depression by later today, and that's going to continue to go through portions near Columbus, Georgia, Macon, Georgia, and even go near Augusta, Georgia by possibly what's today, probably by tomorrow evening. And then by 7 a.m. Monday, this thing does become a storm once again here. You're probably wondering, how is this becoming a storm over land? Ever heard the brown ocean? The brown ocean effect. So basically what the brown ocean effect is basically a storm gets its act together and forms and gets stronger over water. It could be either because lakes or because maybe the Outer Banks had those big gaps between land and water. So this thing could very well be a storm that does interact and become an ocean part of these storms that form from the ocean, brown ocean effect here. And we do already have tropical storm watches across much of the North Carolina coast, from Wilmington all the way up to the Virginia coast. So it's weird to think that we do have tropical storm watches for North Carolina, and there you see they have been a storm all the way up the East Coast, and then about post-tropical storm by makes landfall near Newfoundland. So boy, has Newfoundland got a lot of storms this year, Bill, and now Claudette already too. But this is a weird cone. This is just weird. You do not typically see this whatsoever in June. Typically, the June storms kind of go inland near the Midwest and then die out. They don't reform. I mean, this is just a weird track. This thing has always been weird. I mean, this stage is really weird, but let's go ahead and get looking at the actual wind speed forecast. So here's looking at the actual wind speed forecast. So the same cone. Sadly, this cone is now south of me, so I finally had a chance to get hit spot on. But no, this thing hasn't moved south, so I may not get as big impacts as I expected, but still really heavy rain. So we still have this getting up to 35 miles an hour by this evening. Like I did say, going to be tropical depression very soon. And there's all the convection. So this low is really open. There's low right here, but all the convection is actually towards the east here. So the thing is just really unorganized and trash. 30 miles an hour from Sunday morning to Sunday evening, and then becomes 40 miles an hour near portions of eastern North Carolina, and then becomes 45 miles an hour up to portions of the East Coast. Here's looking at the actual tropical storm warning and watches. So areas like Wilmington and Cape Hatteras are under these tropical storm watches, as well as portions of the Outer Banks in general. And then from areas near the eastern swamps of Louisiana to Mobile and Gulfport, we do still have those tropical storm warnings because we're still seeing that storm surge bringing some really large impacts for the coast of these areas. So here's looking at the actual model intensity guidance. So we do have this now at 40 miles an hour, and then it's supposed to weaken obviously by tomorrow or by this evening, and then it stays at a tropical depression for at least 24 hours. And then as it goes off the coast there, it becomes a pretty decent tropical storm here. It shouldn't be subtropical. I mean, there's a chance it could be subtropical, but there's mainly a better chance it stays tropical here. Even though it's going to be lopsided. So there we go, getting up to maybe even 50 knots. So even 55 miles an hour, but obviously 55 miles an hour isn't a thing. But they kind of, majority have it getting pretty strong here. At its peak of this whole storm could be when it comes off the East Coast, which is something really, really weird about this storm. So let's go ahead and look at the peak storm surge forecast. So obviously we're still seeing some storm surge across portions from eastern Louisiana to portions of the panhandle of Florida. And like I said earlier, that's exactly why we still have those tropical storm warnings in place for those regions, because storm surge is still, I wouldn't say significant, but it's still pretty, it's still at its peak, obviously. But as this goes further inland, that storm surge will decrease and then finally at some point stop. So we're seeing 1 to 2 foot storm surge from portions of eastern Louisiana, and then 2 to 3 foot storm surge from the panhandle of Florida to portions of the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, and then 1 to 2 foot storm surge just outside of Panama City. So peak storm surge still 2 to 3 feet there. So very, very interesting as well. 1 to 3 foot storm surge all the way up into the Outer Banks from Cape Lookout to areas in the Virginia border with North Carolina. So still seeing some decent storm surge all the way up there near North Carolina because of how intense those winds will be, bringing in that storm surge straight for these areas as that counterclockwise spin takes it right for the region. So even Virginia near Newport News, you guys might get some nice effects. So here's the overall greatest flash flood risk for the next 3 days. This is kind of it all added together with day 1, day 2, and day 3. So here's a look now at the overall flash flooding threat. We're gonna kind of watch out for areas, anything from, we're really watching out for anywhere for yellow or red. We're not really watching out for anywhere in green. But so we do have a pretty large slight risk, 10% for flash flooding all the way from Wilmington to portions of Jackson, Mississippi. And the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. So all the way from the Gulf Coast to the southeast Atlantic, Augusta, Charlotte, Wilmington, Birmingham. You guys are getting the worst of that rain, and then, or the second worst of that rain. And then we have that moderate, which is going to be a 20% for that rain. We actually had a high risk for flash flooding last night for Alabama, but now that day 1 is now today, not yesterday, we only have a moderate all the way from Mobile, Montgomery, and as well Atlanta has now been added into that moderate risk. I actually kind of live right between the moderate and slight risk. So I'm somewhat in a slight, but also somewhat in a moderate risk because, you know, I live northeast of Atlanta, and as it goes northeast as Atlanta, it kind of goes back up slightly. So I'm kind of like right on the edge of the moderate and slight. So I can't really tell you guys which one I'm in, but I'm definitely in a, let's just say I'm in a moderate because that kind of sounds pretty cool instead of slight, because I'm never in a moderate for severe weather. So let's just say I'm in a moderate for flash flooding because I'm kind of right on the line. So either way, significant flooding for my area. It's getting cloudy right now. The rain's about to start. So boy, it's about to get interesting for this for the next few days. Here's looking now at the NAM 3-kilometer composite reflectivity. Sorry, as you can kind of see, we're going to continue to see that heaviest rain for specifically portions of the northeast of that low. Here's that low right now. It's going to be northeast. It's going to be portions of Alabama and Mississippi as well. We're still seeing those counterclockwise winds bringing in some storm surge for Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. Still have 2 to 3 foot storm surge expected. As we now get later into the afternoon hours. This rain's going to continue now all the way into Georgia. So Atlanta, I'm about to start getting pounded by rain this afternoon. And even that rain's going to get into South Carolina by this early and mid-afternoon. That low's going to kind of be right there. So there's the northeast quadrant. It's going to bring that heaviest rain from Montgomery, basically Alabama, as well. Even those outer bands bring in some significant rain showers and even severe weather for portions of the Florida Panhandle. As we now get to tomorrow after midnight, 1 in the morning, going to start seeing this storm kind of fall apart a little bit, but still seeing a lot of that rain from North Georgia, even into the North Carolina and Tennessee region. We're going to start seeing some rain in the Appalachian Mountains, so not a good time to go on a walk or on the trail. And then as we now get into Sunday evening, it's going to continue to bring in some rain here across North Carolina and South Carolina, and then they kind of have it forming off. Let's now go ahead and get a look at the actual rain total. So we're going to be seeing our worst rain for those areas kind of in that moderate risk. Going to get an additional around 6 inches of rain for Alabama. Even the Panhandle of Florida can get anywhere from 3 to 5 inches of rain. Atlanta has gone down in rain totals only around 2 inches. I'm kind of right in that 3-inch forecast. Alabama in general is going to get hit quite hard, and probably the hardest by this rain, anywhere from 4 to 6 inches. Actually, we have 8 inches off the coast of Mobile. So overall, going to be seeing some significant flooding, and that flooding will even continue. It will be a lot less widespread, but we will have areas of over 5 inches of rain across areas of North Carolina. The overall forecast for North Carolina will be 2 to 3 inches, but we can get areas like in the Appalachian Mountains or actually outside Charlotte that can get maybe over 5 inches of rain. Let's now go ahead and look at the actual 10-meter winds. So we're going to be seeing those strong winds kind of still off the coast of the Florida region, and that's going to be the kind of counterclockwise spin. There's that low pressure. You can kind of see these winds are kind of going around that way, and that's exactly why we're still seeing that storm surge. Right now, going to be seeing it to 20 mile an hour, maybe even 25 mile an hour relative winds. Relative wind speed, and you're going to get maybe 25 miles an hour there for portions of Georgia. Going to get even 30 miles an hour there for portions of North Carolina. Let's not go ahead and get a look here at the actual 10-meter wind gusts. And you can kind of see you're going to get already a 40 mile an hour wind gust there for Alabama, up to maybe 50 mile an hour wind gust off the coast of Florida. So Alabama's going to get hit really hard, anywhere from 40 to 45 miles an hour. I'm going to get maybe 33 mile an hour wind gusts, 40 mile an hour gusts for Georgia, southern Georgia, and we actually make it over 50 miles an hour wind gusts for southern Georgia near Augusta, and we're going to get even 57 mile an hour wind gusts there for portions of South Carolina. So we're going to get, some really nice rain for that, really nice winds for that region. And then you kind of see that storm once again forms off the coast of North Carolina. Let's go get ahead and look now, and go ahead and get a look here at the 10-meter wind speed for the Northwest Atlantic. So there you see it kind of comes off North Carolina, and it kind of comes off the region of this legit low pressure is going to kind of go right over portion of Wilmington, but it's going to kind of go right there, kind of skinning the coast. So that's exactly why we're talking about a brown ocean effect, because all those low pressure is not going to be over water. It's going to start strengthening because it's really close to water, and the outer bank kind of have those legs around it. So it's going to kind of form before it even touches the water, because it really won't touch the water until it gets close to the Virginia border, and then that's when it continues to strengthen. But it kind of starts strengthening as early as the low pressure passes Columbia, South Carolina, or even North Myrtle Beach. So it's very interesting, getting up to 52 miles an hour, 53 miles an hour. So the Europeans getting it pretty strong, 53 miles an hour. I mean, the GFS does not have this storm forming off the East Coast, but a lot of other models do have this forming off the East Coast. Let's now go ahead and get a look here at the 500 millibar height for vorticity. So let's go ahead and get a look at that for the vorticity forecast. You can kind of see there's that vorticity in Georgia and South Carolina by Sunday, and you kind of see that vorticity signature starts to really blow up as it kind of passes South Carolina and North Carolina, and that's a really strong vorticity. As it goes into jet stream, it will be moving very quickly and gaining a lot of strength. Let's go ahead and now look at the moisture forecast. Moisture really won't be a problem. The southeast will just kind of die off. And you kind of see there's going to be a ton of moisture going up as it goes up the East Coast. Wind shear, on the other hand, will be kind of widespread, but not where this actual low is going to be. So we're actually going to be seeing a ton of wind shear around this actual low. It looks like a hurricane, really, because right where that low is, there's not going to be any wind shear, literally 0 knots. but where we have those outer bands, there's going to be over 30, maybe even 40 knots of wind shear. So this thing is going to most likely, like I just say, it could be subtropical, but the National Hurricane Center wants to have this being fully tropical. And let's go ahead and look at the actual Gulf Stream, see how warm it's going to be. So this low kind of comes off the coast near the North Carolina and Virginia border, and those waters are kind of 23 to 25 degrees Celsius. But it starts to kind of strengthen when it's over North Carolina, because those waters will be up to 29 degrees Celsius over the Gulf Stream, just outside the South Carolina and North Carolina waters. But it's going to kind of go up this way and somehow be tropical still into 20 degrees Celsius waters. So Anna formed in 19 degrees Celsius waters, and somehow this is going to still be tropical over 20 degrees Celsius waters, and won't be subtropical until it makes landfall near the 9 degrees Celsius waters. I mean, this is just crazy. The National Hurricane Center just really has confidence, although these waters are too frigid. I mean, way too frigid, because obviously the National Hurricane Center still has this being a tropical all the way up here, and those waters are anywhere from 17 to 20 degrees Celsius. So I'm not sure what's happening here. But I hope you guys enjoy the video, and I'll see you guys later.